So as I told you, only the prose is remaining. So the 3 chapters which you have in your prose, the singing lesson and B. Wordsworth, and the other is the sound machine. So in singing lesson you might get 4 marks questions related to the state of Mrs. Or the behavior of Mrs. Miss Meadows. She is not a Mrs. She is Miss Meadows. So her behavior in classroom before she receives the telegram. On receiving the letter from her fiancé, how does she react? So in the classroom, before and after the telegram, she receives from, what is his name, Basil. So Basil sends a telegram. When she is in school, she receives a telegram from Basil. But before that, how was her behavior in the classroom? And once she is called to the principal's office and receives the telegram, how does she behave? They are quite a contrast. When she reaches the school and everything seems to be as if in unison with her mood. Everything seems to be as if reflecting her sad mood. So she is in a state of distress. So she is in a melancholic mood, whereas in contrast the girls are very happy, they are coming to school. So but then when she reaches the class and her mood, how it transforms the mood of the whole class, who were bubbly with excitement, another new day for them, and then her favorite student, and how they all of them are affected by the sad mood or her depression, as if takes a toll on the young children also. So how does she behave when she reaches the class music hall? She is filled with sadness, anguish. Why? Because of the letter which she had received from her would-be husband. So Basil. So as she goes, and then how did she give how did she want them to be silent? She gave 2 sharp taps with her baton, and then she tells the girls to be silent, and the way she behaves is very different from her previous behavior, from the way she behaves on other days. Today she is very different, and this tells the girls that she is not in her normal behavior. She is quite upset about something. They don't know that, and she also feels that they must be realizing that what is her name, whatever she is, that she is upset because she is troubled by the letter sent to her by Basil, where he had admitted that he is not a marrying man, and the idea of settling down fills me with nothing but, and then what he had written, he had cut it, but not so he had not cut it so well that it could not be, that it was illegible. She could still understand what he had written, and this fills her with a melancholy. And so how does she react when Mary Beasley, her favorite student, comes to her, and how she always used to present her with a flower, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is symbolic of positivity, but today she is not in a positive mood. So how does she react to it? She ignores it. She doesn't thank Mary. So, and on top of it, her mood is reflected, the sadness is reflected when she tells them to sing a lament. So Mary, how does she feel? She feels shocked. Why is Miss Meadows behaving in this way? So the lament which she wants the class to sing is as if reflecting her mood. And later, when she receives a telegram where Basil says, pay no attention to the letter, must have been mad. Bought hat stand today, Basil. So then how does she react? And her change in behavior, the moment she gets the telegram, she is again filled with hope and joy. And she goes back to the class in a completely different mood. She is now happy, and then she that very yellow chrysanthemum which she had ignored, she picks it up. And then she asks the girls, so she changes the song. It's no more a lament now. So you might get a question, compare and contrast the two moods of Miss Meadows before she received the telegram and after she receives the telegram. So 2 marks for each. You might get, I'm suggesting. So we have to prepare everything. So these could be probable. So, and then she tells them to open to page 32, which is not a lament, it is a happy song. She tells the girls to sing it in a cheerful way, and she also sings. How? In a very deep, in a full, deep and glowing with expression, she joins the song with her students. So what a transformation, what a contrast to her earlier behavior. So this can be one. And you have got a question in which Basil, on the telegram sent by Basil or the letter of Basil, and your thoughts about him. That means character sketch of Basil. In a way, it is the character sketch of Basil. So you can prepare the character sketches of Miss Meadows also. You can prepare, you can prepare Miss Meadows' character sketch. What type of woman she is. So regarding that, some tips could be helpful. What type of woman is Miss Meadows? What is your... So she seems to be quite a popular teacher. Why? Because Mary Beasley, she always presents her with the yellow chrysanthemum she has brought for her. But when the teacher pays no attention to it or ignores, so how she feels, how devastated she feels. That shows that she had not expected this. That means other days she does not behave in this way. And when they were in the class, when the students entered the class, they seemed to be in a happy frame of mind. And later when they see her being so strict and not responding to Mary Beasley's offering her this chrysanthemum, bluntly ignoring, how Mary is on the verge of tears. And even the younger ones, they feel scared because this is not the Miss Meadows they know. So this proves she is a popular teacher, and they were happy when they had entered the music hall. But today she is a sad woman. Why? Because of the letter which she has received from Basil, and that is why when she answers the science teacher also, so science teacher is always in a happy mood, and the moment she sees the happy science teacher, she is filled with resentment. Why? Because she is not happy, and why is she so happy? What is there to be so happy about? So she is as if a contrast to the science teacher, and she is just a typical school teacher. So attached to her students, and they are also in return attached to her. And when she is sad, she plays the lament. She tells them to sing it with more expressions. She wants more expressions from them. She feels the sadness with which they are singing it is not enough. And on the other hand, after she receives the telegram from Basil, so she is happy. She is on the wings of hope, of love and joy. So we can say that she is an impressionable woman. She gets easily affected by whatever is happening around her. So very emotional. So she is not professional. A professional person would hide whatever is going on and act in a professional manner, whatever happens. Nowadays we have seen so many professional people. They hide the sadness within them, and they don't let the others have an inkling. And only later they cry to themselves, but they won't spoil the happiness of others just because they are suffering. But she seems to be a very emotional woman. So when she receives the letter, she is heartbroken. So her inner turmoil influences her whole class, and she allows it by her behavior. refusing to accept the chrysanthemum. So Mede is in a fix or in some trouble. So, and then when Basil tells that it was a mistake and all that, and he is buying hat or whatever, or hat stand, immediately a great transformation, again happiness, and this time she picks up the yellow chrysanthemum. And yes, she is an insecure woman. Why? She is in her late 20s, or rather she is in her 30s. So she is insecure about her position in society. Basil is quite young, he is younger than her. So when so people must be wondering when they hear of her engagement to Basil, who is younger. And now that she receives the letter from Basil, she doesn't know how to face. People would know about her, so she doesn't want that they should laugh behind her back, or she becomes something of a embarrassment. So she plans to leave the place and go away. She doesn't want that people should make fun of her behind her back. So she wants to escape embarrassment. She wants to leave this place and go away. So these are the insecure, easily she is impressionable, getting easily influenced. She is a popular school teacher and a stereotyped school teacher. So these are the different points you can write about Miss Meadows. Whereas Basil, so what type of person is Basil? These are the two characters actually. Basil is not present before us, but we get to know about him through his letter and telegram. So we can call him that he is not mature enough, he is confused, otherwise he wouldn't have written that letter once and then another, sending another telegram. So he is an insensitive person. Otherwise he used the word disgust, and though he cut it, but he didn't cut it, he didn't think of what effect it might produce in Miss Meadows when she reads it. So he is insensitive to the feelings of others, and yes, of course, a fickle-minded man. At one time he thinks, I'm not the marrying type, another time he regrets it and he says forget about it. But does he ever realize the pain she had suffered? So he is not sensitive, he is not mature, he is confused and a fickle-minded person. And you can give instances. If you get 4 marks question, you can give examples. You won't need much to write. 4 marks isn't much. Some of my students are suggesting that their school teachers have said not more than 100 words. So if you write 5 to 6 lines, and in one line how many words? No, that wouldn't be 100, but not more than 100. So it can be less than 100, provided you give the points. Normally, like in ICSC, they said 1 marks for 1 marks question, 1 line, 2 marks, 2 lines, at the most 3 lines. In the same way, 4 marks should be 5 to 6 lines, at the most a little more. Where you have put the points, even if you have put the points, 4 to 5 marks is 4 to 5 lines is enough. If you have put the points, or at the most go for 6 to 7, not more. So this one done. Now 2 more are remaining. So regarding the sound machine, you have got one question in the specimen, that his experiment and his encounter with Miss Saunders, Mrs. Saunders, his neighbor, and how he tries to explain the result to her and what is her reaction. She considers himself to be cranky, crazy. So then that experience, yes, Mrs. Saunders, will you cut once more, and all that he tells. And what does he hear from the sound machine? What type of sound does he hear? And then that is one we have already done with it, so I'm not discussing it anymore. I have done it in my earlier video. So now instead of that question, you might get another question, that how does Klausner try to learn more about the reaction of plants and animals, plants and trees with the help of sound machine. How does he want to how does he experiment more on this subject? First one was when he had heard Miss Klausner, when he heard the shriek when Miss Klausner was cutting the rose stems. So how does he himself now experiment? So Klausner, he tries to learn more about this. So what does he do? He takes a white daisy and pulls it both upward and sideways, and then the stem snaps, and this time also he hears a soft high pitched shriek. So this is his experiment. This time he himself does it. That time he had told Mrs. Saunders to do, and this time he himself is doing it. He wants to see, he wants to experiment more. So he repeats his action with another daisy, and again the same thing happens. He hears the shriek. So he doesn't know if through this shriek the daisy is expressing its pain, or pain is the emotion in our vocabulary, is the name of an emotion in our vocabulary, but they might be expressing some other emotion. So he doesn't know about that. So how does he experiment himself? And then how does he want to test his invention? So what does he do the next morning? How does he test his invention the next morning? So he takes that machine, sound machine, and goes towards the park in front of his house. And yes, that incident, he places the box near the tree trunk, and with the axe, what does he do? He gives a blow with all his might to the tree trunk, and then he hears a peculiar sound. And this is different from the sound he had heard when Mrs. Saunders had cut the rose plant. They were plants when he had plucked the daisy, and this is a full-fledged grown-up tree. So what he hears, and why does he contact Dr. Scott? A question might come. So he returns after hearing that strange peculiar sound. He hurries home and goes and contacts Dr. Scott. Why? Because this is the person in whom he had confided about his sound machine. So he asks the doctor to come immediately, and then he thinks many strange ideas come into his mind. And when Dr. Scott comes, he wants to show it to Dr. Scott. He wants Dr. Scott also to experience what he has experienced. So he wants him to put on the earphones, which the doctor does, and when he gives a second blow to the tree, what happens? This time the tree is not passive, he feels. So Dr. Scott has seen what is going to happen, so he tells Klausner to run quickly, and Dr. Scott also escapes. And what happens? The branch of one of the branches of the tree fall on the sound machine and smash it. So you might get a question, how is the sound machine smashed? So then you'll have to go for this one experiment with his axe, and another second blow, first blow, second blow, and when he delivers his second blow, this time the tree doesn't remain. First time the tree most probably had not expected something, but the second time it does. And now he wants to know from the doctor whether the doctor had also heard something of this sort, but no, the doctor was too busy trying to save his own life, so the doctor has not heard anything of this sort. So through one thing you might be asked is that what does this tell you about Klausner? What type of person is he? So yes, he is a nature lover. He might be a bit weird, cranky, but he is a nature lover. He feels the pain, and that is why after the first blow given to the tree, when he hears the shrieking, then strange ideas come to his mind. What would happen? Yeah, the crops, we cut them, we walk on the grass also must be feeling the pain. So that shows how sensitive he is towards the suffering of others, whether even if they are not human beings. So basically he is a very nice person, and that is why he feels that when we are injured, what happens if there is a gap, a gaping wound? It is stitched up. So he wants a similar thing to be done to the tree. That tells that he doesn't consider the tree to be something different from humans. And he also tells, when the doctor says that it cannot be stitched because it is wood, then he tells that some iodine, put some iodine, and also to come and check the tree whether the wound is healing or not. He is repentant, he is regretful for his actions. So he is a sensitive person, Klausner. He is obsessed. What are the characteristics of Klausner on the whole? So he is an obsessed person. Obsessed with what? With his with sounds. Yes, we wouldn't bother as much is audible to us, and that's enough. Do we try to probe into those sounds which are not audible? And he is, another thing is that he is insecure, he lacks confidence. So he is insecure, he lacks confidence, and that is why when he is working on his machines also, so he would pull the wires, he turns them nervously, he nods his head, twists his mouth in different shapes. And then another thing is that he, as I told you, he is a lover of nature. This is the biggest quality, biggest characteristic. So when he realizes that the trees and the rose plant or the daisy, they are also experiencing the pain just like any human being, how sorry he feels, and then all the thoughts that come into his mind. So for a 4 marks this would be enough. If you get a question, what type of person was Klausner? And Dr. Scott, I don't think you will get anything about him, but if you get, so what are the points you should note? Because he is a passive character, he is not so much in the picture. The main character is Klausner. So the experiments are important. One though you have already got in your specimen, the other. So now only one is left, B. Wordsworth. Yes, regarding B. Wordsworth, what are the things you need to remember while you are revising? What are the things that should be kept in mind? Like you might get a question, who were the strange visitors at the narrator's house? So every day what would happen? Yes, beggars would come to his house. One would come at 10 and another. Every 2 hours later one would come. And what type of alms they were offered? The first man was the one who benefited the most. After that the second one and the third one, the lesser it becomes, the help given to them becomes lesser. But sometimes they are called by rogues also, and there was one man who wouldn't leave unless he was given a smoke, and also he urged that it should be lighted, but he never returned. And one of the strangest callers, so you can get a question, who was the strangest caller that at the narrator's house? So he was neatly dressed. No, who other than B. Wordsworth, the main protagonist of this story. So who is referred to as the strangest caller by the narrator? So the man was neatly dressed, wore a hat, a white shirt and black trousers. The man spoke impeccable English and it didn't sound natural. That means he was trying to imitate pure English, but it was not natural, because in Miguel Street this type of language, and he is a West Indian but he tries to behave like an Englishman. And what was his request? He didn't ask for alms, he didn't beg of something. So he put forward a request that he wanted to watch the bees. The boy's mother was not very willing, but she reluctantly agreed. And then he told the boy his name and all that. So again, the relationship between the boy or the narrator and B. Wordsworth. So they are of an unequal age. One is middle aged and he is such a young boy. And what is the foundation of the relationship? The boy nothing is told about his father. Most probably he doesn't have a father. He's a fatherless boy. The mother is very what should we say, she is bitter, bad tempered. So he craves for love, affection, and that is what he gets in this man, B. Wordsworth. B. Wordsworth is also lonely because of his strange manners. He calls himself a poet, and he doesn't interact freely. But this boy, whom he finds or he calls a poet. So this is a strange friendship of people belonging to unequal ages. A young boy and a middle-aged man. So maybe he sees in this boy a friend, a child, which he would have had, but he doesn't. So the fatherly affection also there in B. Wordsworth, and the way he treats this boy as an adult, not like a child, as a mature friend, and he confides in him. So these are the things. In the first meeting only, he has made an impression on the boy, so much so, and he calls him Sonny, that another what should we say, a nickname for son, a fond name for son. Instead of calling him my son, Sonny. So he creates an impression on the boy in the first meeting, so that he wishes to meet him the second time, and this time he is not standing in front of his house, he is waiting. So when the boy returns from school, he invites the boy to taste the ripe mangoes in his house, and life becomes very exciting. The world becomes an exciting place because of B. Wordsworth. When the mother beats up the boy, and the boy is very annoyed, and he doesn't want to he tells, I will not come back. So how does B. Wordsworth try to calm the anger of the boy? So these are the steps that pave way for their friendship. So he takes the boy for a walk. He is a nature lover, and then they lay on the grass, and he tells him about the different constellations. So the boy comes down, and then a policeman, when he comes and asks that what are you doing here, so he answers strangely that is the question I've been asking myself for the last 40 years. So he seems to be a 40-year-old man, and this is a young boy, barely 13, I think. So they become close friends. They enjoy each other's company. So the narrator, or the young boy, he starts developing a liking for Wordsworth. Then when he visits the house, he asks this man, why do you keep this bush, why this outgrowth in your house, why don't you maintain your garden? So the story he tells, it is a sad story about a boy poet and a girl poet. The girl poet was fond of the garden, and the boy poet, and then a baby poet was coming, but the baby poet never came, and the girl poet also died. So he tells a sad story, and the boy guesses that the story could pertain to the life of B. Wordsworth. It can be a true story about his own life. And then again, he calls himself the greatest poet, and he is writing the greatest poem, and he is the brother, he is B. Wordsworth, Black Wordsworth, and he tries to show that White Wordsworth, or rather William Wordsworth, is his brother. Why? Because both of them are nature lovers. He loves nature. He wants to gaze on things for hours, whether it is bees or scorpions or centipedes or whatever, gazing at the stars. Yes, maintaining that garden in his house, not cutting anything, letting it remain. And then what are the other landmarks of it? Their friendship goes on quite fine, but then what happens? The B. Wordsworth, he seems to be sick, he is not well, and this does not escape the eye of the young boy, the narrator, and he feels sad, because as if he could see death in the face of his friend. And when B. Wordsworth realizes that the boy has been able to see the signs of his deteriorating health, he tells, I told you na, you are a poet and that is why you can see death in my face. And so that the boy doesn't feel sad, he as if is telling him a secret, he tells that all that I told you, they were lies. So forget all about them. Why? Because he realizes the pain the boy feels, the loss of a friend, a great friend, from whom he had got so much love and affection which he would have wanted from his father, but he never got because he had no father. He was a fatherless boy. And now that he sees death in the face of this man written, so he listens to, he makes the promise to this man and he never returns. And 1 year, because he feels he wouldn't be able to bear this tragedy. And 1 year later when he comes back, he finds nothing, as if everything had vanished, no trace of that garden pulled down and that house, everything pulled down, no nature, along with B. Wordsworth, as if all the trees and everything had disappeared, and instead what had happened, there was brick and concrete everywhere. So as if B. Wordsworth, a lover of nature, he had never existed. So these are some of the important points of the story, important landmarks or signposts of the story. The strange caller, the friendship, the strange caller, the friendship, and how it develops. Because of the cruelty of the mother, he takes refuge in the house of that man, and how the man is able, but the man is a failure in life. He talks about the greatest poem he would write and he would become famous, but he says every month he writes one line, all his experiences in one line. So these things need to be remembered. The line, number of lines he has written up till now, and how many years it would take him to complete. So you need to mention, you need to go through these, because if you are given a question about the greatest poem, what does B. Wordsworth say about his greatest poem, how long will it take? Because these are factual ones. So like yes, you need to remember them. So I think it was 5 years, he had been writing this poem for 5 years. So in that case he has written 60 lines, and he says 22 more years. So you calculate 22 into 12, that means how many more lines. But later he knows that he will never be able to complete, and once when the narrator had asked him, how is your poem progressing, so he said that no, he's not writing it anymore. And later he tells that all those things were lies. So in a way he is an escapist. He's not a practical person. So you might get a character sketch of B. Wordsworth. So what are the things you will harp on then? So B. Wordsworth is a nature lover, he is an affectionate person, and he is a colonized man. So he is an inhabitant or a native of Trinidad, but he behaved like an Englishman. He spoke English in an impeccable manner, but it seemed unnatural. It was not natural. Why? Because he was basically a West Indian. So these are the things. Yes, affectionate man of course, but impractical person. He was a failure in life. So he was disillusioned with life. These are some points. He is an escapist. So these are the points you need to highlight. If you get a character sketch, so since it is 4 marks, you don't need to write pages. You know that I am continuously telling you this, but at least you should write something substantial. And since you have no choice, you are to study each and everything, because you have seen the sample. All of them have come. 32 marks, 8 questions. Yes, you have 2 acts of Tempest, 3 prose, that amounts to 3 and 2, 5 and 2, 7. 2 poems and 3 prose, 5, and 2 acts of Tempest. So you have 7 chapters, if we take those two as chapters, the two acts as chapters, then you have 7 and you are getting 8 questions. So from one chapter you will get 2 questions, like you had in this one, in the prose. So you can't leave anything. If you leave and you get a question from that chapter, so if you leave anything, and then you won't be able to write. So you have to go through everything. You have studied, I know that, but on the eve of examination, just go through it, especially the important places which if you forget will be trouble. You remember the story outline, it is not a problem, but there are some places which are facts which you need to remember. You have an outline and you can handle some questions with the outline of it, but where there are details needed, there you have, that is why I am telling you to focus on these particular places, because if only your storyline won't help in these cases. Okay, so I have given a big lecture. So yes, best of luck, and I hope you will be surely doing fine, and I hope my video helps you. Bye. It was your request and I listened to it.